here's the mythical pickle. Yeah, so I've been gone from the internet a little while now, haven't I? I think my last post was in... Dang! Has it really been that long? Wow, I guess time flies when you're getting railed by life, huh? My apologies for that, homies, and for what it's worth, it wasn't intentional. I gotta be honest, I went a little cuckoo, bros. I had big plans for multiple new video formats, and they all, for one reason or another, fell through. It's been rough, but truly that's no excuse. I intend to do better for all you pickle knights out there, and these next few months should be much more interesting. I think I finally worked out some of the kinks in these ideas, and I'm ready to pump out a nice, consistent onslaught of content for you guys in the months to come. Kinda as my way of saying thank you to you guys for sticking around with me all this time, because I genuinely do appreciate each and every one of you. I mean it. Now, without further ado, ladies and gents, let's get into the video. Bears, Beets, Battlestar Galactica. Today's goal? It's simple, really. Help Dwight Schrute take over the entire Commonwealth, one beet at a time. Yes, you heard that right. Dwight Schrute, assistant to the regional manager, beet farmer, martial arts expert, possibly even a war criminal. And I've just loaded him into Fallout 4 with one mission in mind. Bring law, order, and Schrute-brand justice to the wasteland through an aggressive combination of micromanagement, knifely combat, and deeply unsettling charisma.
I got 56 ounces of fluid in my bladder, and we have to establish a pee corner.
Along the way, we'll dismantle democracy, promote mandatory office drills, and ensure that absolutely no one in this wasteland is having a good time. So, grab a beet, hug your nearest bear, and let's see if the Commonwealth is ready for a manager who doesn't believe in fun or mercy. Welcome to Fallout 4, Dwight's Hostile Takeover. How's it going, everybody? The Mythical Pickle here, and today, as the title suggests, we're going to be diving into the post-apocalyptic wasteland as none other than the world's most underappreciated assistant to the regional manager, Dwight K. Schrute. First things first, before we can conquer the wasteland with our impressive, world-dominating plans, we need to make sure Dwight's looking the part. Just a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and perfection. Or at least that's good enough for Dwight. And with those special stats locked in and a quick change into his signature look, Dwight has officially entered the Commonwealth. There is nothing that's gonna stop his plans for world domination now, except of course the slightly less glamorous task of finding something to defend himself with. Now let's talk weaponry. Dwight's no stranger to weapons, especially if they're sharp, and a quick Google search will reveal that Dwight has a pretty extensive collection of weapons in the show. And guess what? The show's writers knew Dwight just wasn't quite complete without a few shurikens. Yes, shurikens, or rather throwing stars for us average folk. So naturally we'll have to be adding some of those to our inventory. These tiny deadly discs, they'll come in handy when Dwight needs to slice and dice through some enemies, and trust me, they'll do more than just add a little flair to his combat. So after crafting a whole bunch of these bad boys, I headed out for some test throwing, and well, here's the thing. These things take up the grenade slot, meaning you need to hold down the button for a few seconds before the game even realizes you're trying to throw something. It's a real test of patience, let me tell you, but once they get airborne, these flying Death Stars are wildly powerful with decent range too. This is definitely gonna come in handy later. I can feel it. With my target practice out of the way, it was time to make my way to Concord to see how these little throwing stars do against something that can't be thwarted by a fly swatter. Oh! Woo! But then, just as things were heating up in Concord, I got out of there faster than Dwight trying to set off a radar speed sign, because I'm not about to fight a 9-foot lizard with only a couple of glorified can openers. So, what did I do instead? Well, I embarked on an abnormal trek across the Commonwealth to Pikmin Gallery in search of the one and only Pikmin blade, a combat knife that looks suspiciously similar to the one Dwight pulls out of his file named Mr. A Knife. And let me tell you, getting through this place, a lot of dying and a lot of reloading, and a lot of asking myself why I didn't just take up day drinking instead. Eventually though, after making it to the basement floor with, well, minimal combat, I let the raiders do most of the damage to Pikmin. Once he was sufficiently weakened, I took the chance, and with the stealth of a slightly more homicidal ninja, I swooped in and took down Pikmin. And voila! Mr. A Knife was safely in our hands. With Mr. A Knife in hand, I felt a little more secure facing the Deathclaw that was waiting for me in Concord. I figured, hey, what better way to test the power of this knife than to face a giant mutilated lizard hell-bent on devouring my face? So I sliced through those raiders like a hot knife through butter. Easy, cakewalk. But when it came to the Deathclaw, well, let's just say trying to stab a feral demon lizard the size of a small building with a 4-inch knife didn't exactly go according to plan. Cue the montage of my swift and inevitable deaths. I'd love to say I was graceful with this new weapon, but really it was just a lot of flailing and repeatedly watching my face get shredded. But after strategically ducking in and out of doorways, throwing my shurikens like a ninja on caffeine, I finally took the beast down, and let me tell you, that victory felt sweet. Now, after Concord, I figured there's really no reason to continue pretending Dwight would want to follow around the Brady Bunch, so instead I made a little trip to see what Diamond City had to offer. This should be easy, right? Well, getting there wasn't much of a problem anyway, but once I arrived, things went south faster than a cat in a dog park. As soon as I rolled up to Diamond City, Piper was giving her usual spiel to the security, but out of nowhere we got jumped by a feral mutt. At first I thought, great, this is just another stroke of bad luck. But then I realized something. It completely skipped the opening dialogue cutscene to Diamond City. I just dodged all that exposition from one little rad pup. I was in the clear. No need to hear Piper yap about the wonders of Diamond City. Now that's what I'm talking about. After busting through the front gates and selling all my ill-gotten gains, because of course Dwight's got loads of those, it was time for Dwight to get into the real detective work. We're talking about hunting down none other than Nick Valentine. Classic Dwight move. Become a one-man detective agency with a combat knife and a bunch of throwing stars. What could go wrong? I told Ellie, Nick's co-worker, that I was on the case, and in no time we were back on the road. I was ready to put my extensive detective skills to the test, which is pretty much just running around and throwing sharp things at people. So what I usually do. The first few encounters with the Tommies, easy. I took them down with my trusty ninja stars while cleverly hiding behind cover like the expert tactician Dwight Schrute is. It was like playing a game of high stakes hide and seek, until of course I got a little too cocky, albeit. Okay, this is gonna be a little trickier than I thought. Well, after those unfortunate deaths, I recalibrated my strategy and decided to sneak around. A few unlucky Tommies met their end at the pointy end of my blade, and eventually I reached my next hiding spot. Progress, people, progress. Now, the real challenge was the subway tracks. The sheer number of Tommies in this area made it nearly impossible to sneak through undetected, especially with my agility stats being about as helpful as a paperweight in a hurricane. campaign. But like any good hero, I pushed forward, straight down the path, taking down a few unlucky souls, dying again and again. But at least this time, I was determined. After playing what felt like a solid hour of hide and seek with the Tommies, I finally navigated my way through the vault, and guess what? I found where Valentine was locked up, just like that. The mystery of Valentine was solved. No big deal, just another day in the life of Dwight Schrute, personal detective.
Mystery solved.
As usual, I had to deal with Zeno first. Now, it was pretty clear he wasn't exactly in the mood for a heart-to-heart, so I just took matters into my own hands. With Zeno out of the way, it was business as usual, ducking, dodging, and throwing shurikens like an absolute professional. At this point, I was getting way more comfortable with Mr. A-Knife as well. It was like we had become one, an unstoppable force of awkwardly powerful mayhem. But, of course, as is tradition in Fallout, just when I thought everything was going smoothly, we reached the exit, only to be greeted by the usual welcoming committee. And by welcoming committee, I mean Skinny Malone and his entire disappointingly mediocre crew of thugs. Now, in a normal playthrough, Skinny Malone is a joke, let's be honest. You're probably rocking a decent suit of armor by this point, and you got enough firepower to make a swift and painless exchange. Well, Dwight's paper-thin suit, combined with his lackluster ninja star throwing skills, and the fact that he's wielding a 4-inch blade, turned what should have been a routine procedure into a gauntlet of pain and misery. Okay, fine, maybe I was exaggerating a bit with the misery part, but seriously, dealing with Skinny and his goons was like trying to fight a brick wall with a spoon. Sure, you can try, but you'll probably get pretty f***ed up by the end of it. But after reloading about 15 times, not that I'm counting, I finally figured out a strategy. Sneak around like a master of stealth, popping out to take down the occasional thug before ducking back into cover. A few well-timed ninja star throws and a couple of precise slices of Mr. A-Knife, and boom, Skinny Malone and his crew went down. Good job, Dwight. Now, with Valentine safe and sound, I figured, alright, now we can actually start the game. Or at least that's what I thought. First stop, a little nice sit down in Nick's office. Time to spill the beans on why I saved him in the first place. And then, well, then I realized I completely messed up the plot. Apparently, I forgot to uninstall the alternate start mod. Classic rookie move. But no worries, I quickly made a pit stop to Vault 101, where Dwight became mesmerized by the idea of accessing cryotechnology. Cryotech? Yeah, that sounds like something Dwight would totally use to freeze his coworkers in place when they challenge his authority. Or, to be honest, he'd probably just freeze himself for future use. Anyway, after grabbing the holotape we needed, I headed back to Valentine for our little story time. Then it was to Kellogg's old digs to rifle through his belongings. But at this point, Dwight hadn't exactly leveled up much. So any perks I had went into melee damage or health boosting, and definitely not lockpicking. So what did I do instead of breaking into this place? Well, I sauntered on over to the mayor's office, thinking I could legally obtain the key to Kellogg's room. Naturally, I asked nicely at first, but when that didn't work, Dwight did what any reasonable person would do, and asked for the manager, aka Mr. Donut. Look, Dwight was trying to be diplomatic, but when push comes to shove, let's just say things went south faster than a beet farm in a drought. And Dwight Schrute's supposedly a great salesman in the show, likely because he's so direct. He doesn't waste time with the necessities and never apologizes for being blunt. So, I figured the best way to represent that in Fallout form was by attempting every speech check just once. If it didn't work, oh well, Dwight's not here to make friends after all. He's here to accomplish his goals, and if you don't like it, too bad. You're getting Schrute treatment regardless. Speaking of pissing people off, turns out trying to bribe the mayor for a key to someone else's place is a bit agitating. Go figure. So instead of the usual rigmarole, Dwight took matters into his own hands and slipped the receptionist a $5, and just like that, the key was ours. Now, before you come at me for Dwight using bribery, let me explain. I know he's technically against crimes, being a volunteer deputy and all, but let's face it, Dwight would stop at nothing to accomplish his goals, and in a post-apocalyptic world, petty crime is barely even on the radar. So yeah, bribery's probably the least of his worries at this point. He's more so focused on breathing and world domination. Anyway, with the key secured, I waltzed into Kellogg's old digs. It took all of 2 seconds, and before I knew it, I was following Dogmeat through the wasteland. Normally I'd just fast travel to a spot near Fort Hagen, but not Dwight. Dwight's a survival expert and a good hunter at that. He wasn't about to let some random German shepherd show him up. And of course, everything was going perfectly fine until it happened. Yeah, sure was a good thing Dwight's well versed in bear attacks. That could have gone horribly wrong. After finally reaching Fort Hagen, I started to get a sinking feeling that maybe I wasn't as prepared for this as I had thought. I had 0 armor and only a handful of ninja stars left, but you know what really stole the show in there? Mr. A Knife. Let's give him a round of applause. Oh wait, hold your applause. Let's save that for later. But after that, the real fun began. There was still 1 room left. Time for Kellogg to meet his match.
Let's, talk.
You couldn't handle my undivided attention.
Okay, we can applaud the knife now. Good job, buddy. Well, that went well. Gotta say, nothing beats taking down your enemies in 5 seconds flat. That's a Schrute method, alright. Quick, efficient, and a little bit terrifying. Now, with all the info I needed on the Institute, it was about time to head back to the home base to have a little chat with Nick about Kellogg's shady dealings with them. And bingo, bango, bongo, next thing you know, I was strapped into a machine that reads people's minds in the memory den. Yeah, sure. Let's scan Dwight's brain. Definitely not gonna find anything weird in there. After a quick mind surfing session, because apparently that's a thing now, I was released back into the wild. But this time, I was on the hunt for yet another abomination, a super mutant that goes by Virgil. And getting Dwight across the irradiated zone was surprisingly easy. Normally this is where you'd run into a Deathclaw, and by the time you reach the other side, you're already half dead from the radiation without power armor. So you're kinda out of luck. But no, this time, I just beelined it for the corner of the map and bam, I hit Virgil's cave without even breaking a sweat. The conversation with Virgil went swimmingly. I mean, for Dwight, a smooth conversation is one where he doesn't outright insult anyone, so I'll take it. Riding high on my newfound luck, I thought it was time to rename our trusty knife. Mr. Knife? Nah, it's too informal. Let's give it the respect it deserves. Yeah, that's better. And just like that, it was off to the Mass Fusion building to hunt down our very own Courser. Now, I'm gonna be real with you. At this point, Dwight had absolutely no armor. I mean, at all. All I had was a tan suit and bifocals. So yeah, going up against the Institute's most highly trained military robot in that, probably not the best idea. So, I did it anyway. Come on, where's your gaming spirit? It's time to deal with the menace in a leather trench coat. But first, a word from our sponsors. After handling those gunners like a professional hitman, I snuck up to where the Courser was lounging around. Real classy guy, this Courser, just kinda sitting up there in his leather trench coat like he's the star of a 90s action flick. Well, I waited for the perfect moment, and without hesitation, I went full Edward Scissorhands on his ass. And just like that, the courser was down. I gotta say, that was probably one of the smoothest courser takedowns I've had at this stage in the game. But never mind that. After I took care of business there, it was time to put my detective hat on and get to work. Not only did we need to find the railroad to see if I could get Tinker Tom to crack the code on the courser chip I found, but I was also under no illusion that I got lucky dealing with that courser, considering Dwight's clothes might as well be made out of paper. So it was time to do a little armor shopping as well. Dwight's known for sniffing things out, and today was no different. I discovered the railroad's secret passageway because who doesn't want to be a part of an underground resistance movement, right? And after cracking their highly complicated gate code, I nearly talked my way out of their little club. Almost. Thankfully, Deacon stepped in and de-escalated things a bit. And sure enough, after some begrudging cooperation, the railroad handed over the code, which only leaves one last task on the railroad agenda: get Ballistic Weave. So, with Desdemona's approval of course, I was sent on what felt like an endless string of errand quests. Now, I'm not going to bore you with the details of every little task these guys put Dwight through. We're not here for fetch quest. But suffice it to say, they sure know how to make a guy work for his pay. I swear, it felt like I was saving cents, recovering dusty old hardware, or setting up secondary bases left and right. Exciting stuff. But after what felt like a century of this nonsense, I finally got the good news. We had a meeting with Pam.
An office administrator, Pamela Beasley Halpert, is my best friend.
Now, this might be a different kind of Pam than the one Dwight had to deal with back in Scranton, but after a quick chat about Beets, bears, and I don't really know, whatever else Dwight might talk about when he's trying to relate to a machine, Pam eventually sent us on another quest. So wasting no time, I found and snatched that supply drop Pam wanted, then trudged back home, and finally handed everything over to Tinker Tom. And after what felt like an eternity of questline, he finally handed me the schematics for Ballistic Weave. I, of course, promptly slapped that Ballistic Weave onto my suit, and just like that, Dwight Schrute, survival expert, was ready to take on the wasteland like a pro. And now that we've got an extra 30 armor points to our name, and the railroad now on our side, we were all set to build the teleporter. But just before we get too carried away with that, Dwight had just one last thing to attend to. Haha, yes, folks. Dwight Schrute had just acquired his managerial rightful weapon of choice, the Beaumont Adams revolver. Okay, fine. Technically, it's an 1875 Remington, but in the show, Dwight always refers to it as a Beaumont Adams. So, for the sake of the run, we'll be calling it that too. Sorry, gun enthusiasts, this one's probably gonna be a rough one for you. Now, with this new toy in hand and a much improved arsenal overall, it was finally time to break into the Institute. Thankfully, all my seemingly pointless scrap hoarding actually paid off for once, and the teleporter was nearly ready. But before Dwight Schrute could step foot in the Institute, Desdemona had to give the usual speech of, "Anything you find in the Institute belongs to the railroad." Yeah, blah blah blah. Look, Dwight's an honorable man most of the time, but he doesn't just follow orders from anyone unless they're from a manager he respects. So I let Desdemona finish her little speech, and then it was time to see what awaited us on the other side. And in the blink of an eye, Dwight made it into the Institute. But instead of immediately compromising their network at the whim of the railroad, I decided to follow the voices in my head to the elevator shaft and descended into the unknown. Well, sort of. As soon as I finished scaring the hell out of the robo-child, things started to get interesting. Father made his grand entrance. After discussing the deets on the Institute, Dwight found an acute surge of interest in this futuristic world. Kinda like his favorite show, Battlestar Galactica, except with less Cylons. Wait, nope, we got that too. Now, Dwight, being the well-informed individual he is, learned what not to do when it comes to using synthetic humans as tools, thanks to the Cylons of Battlestar Galactica. And let's be real, the Minutemen were way too weak for Dwight to hitch his wagon to anyway. And I don't know about you, but the Schrutes never really struck me as the freedom-fighting rebel type like those in the Railroad. So that pretty much just left us with two options: the Brotherhood of Steel or the Institute, both of which are kinda low on the overall morale thing. Now, while Dwight wasn't exactly a stranger to uniforms and assignments given his noble service as a volunteer deputy, he wasn't exactly a military man either. And let's face it, that's kind of the Brotherhood of Steel's whole shtick. And to be honest, I think that's a little bit too much conformity for Dwight, especially when his duties usually involve grilling people about beet harvest. So, with that in mind, Dwight did what any logical person would do in this situation. He confidently accepted this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to build his own robot army, even if it meant remaining in second command once again. But hey, it's all about the long game, right? Now, in order to reach world domination, Dwight first had to shake a few hands around the office. You know, typical office politics. Sometimes it's about the corporate game. Besides, once the preliminaries were out of the way, Dwight wasted no time getting down to business. Now, first order of said business, track down and detain a rogue synth who had gone on a mass murder spree. Yeah, that's a pretty bad sign, like a Cylon level bad sign. But, as always, Dwight remained indifferent to the reasons we were here. It's just another old Tuesday for Dwight. We have world domination on the mind. So I plowed my way through those raiders like they were nothing and quickly retrieved that runaway synth. Mission accomplished. Father was so impressed with Dwight's efficiency that he skipped the usual errands and sent Dwight straight into an active war zone. By this point, I was still tight with the Railroad, so really I only had a few Brotherhood of Steel operatives to deal with. And while those guys were a pain in the ass, Dwight's quick wit and a few well-placed 44 caliber bullets got the job done. And before long, the synths were back where they belonged. But Dwight wasn't done quite yet. No. He returned home to join what he thought was a regular office meeting. Little did he know, this was no ordinary meeting. Just as Father uttered those magical words, Dwight's life flashed before his eyes. All the hard work, the grueling effort, the sweat, the tears, it all led to this moment. Dwight was about to be the new manager, CEO, and head chairman of the Institute. A title Dwight would have salivated over the mere thought of, and now it was his. The world had no idea what was coming. World domination? Here we come. And as the first official act as lead director in training, I had to help a fellow colleague, or more accurately, Dwight's future underling, retrieve a beryllium agitator. You know, just your average piece of world-altering nuclear tech. No big deal. Now, normally, Allie insists on tagging along for this mission, but Dwight is no pushover, and neither am I. Kinda figured that the whole thing would run a lot smoother if she stayed behind and let a real assistant to the regional director handle it. She, albeit reluctantly, agreed, and soon after, Dwight was cutting through Brotherhood of Steel Knights like it was his job. Which, when you think about it, it kinda is. After navigating through the chaos and finally figuring out where the beryllium agitator was, I had secured it. But getting out, yeah, that was gonna take a bit more elbow grease than Dwight originally signed up for. Still, as always, Dwight prevailed, because of course he did. And soon enough, I returned to the Institute with the good news, and more importantly, the beryllium agitator. And next up on the Institute's honey-do list, retrieve a valuable scientist. Sounds easy enough, right? Wrong. Because the guy had locked himself inside of a room and decided to hold himself hostage. Classic move. Unfortunately, Dwight is not what you would call a silver-tongued negotiator. He's more of a say it how it is and don't care how it lands kind of guy, which made this already tense hostage situation just a smidge trickier. And shockingly, Dwight's no-nonsense negotiation approach didn't quite seal the deal. So the Institute initiated Plan B to send a synth in to clean up the mess. Which, when you really think about it, kind of made it pointless for Dwight to have even shown up in the first place. Isn't that terrific? Just love being a glorified errand boy. No matter. What's done is done, and now it's time for the Institute's biggest announcement to the Commonwealth.
For years now, you have suspected that the Institute still exists, that we are among you. We are here and we are your new masters, ensuring that mankind has a future. We have no desire to interfere in the unimportant details of your pointless struggles. We simply insist that you do not interfere with Institute operations. To do so would result in your complete annihilation. Rest easy. Know that the future is out of your control and that mankind will thrive under our guidance.
Well, I mean, that definitely got the message across. And Dwight? Yeah, well, he's definitely starting to let all this newfound power inflate his ego just a little bit. But hey, we're already neck deep in this now. No turning back. With the speech recorded, I made a quick pit stop to say hi to Travis, and then jam some top-tier tech into his glorified shed of a radio station. And before long, our brutally honest, slightly terrifying speech was being broadcast to the furthest, most irradiated corners of the Commonwealth. Only downside? That broadcast meant we were now officially on the clock. And that's when Father asked something of me, something that would shock the average citizen, or even the slightly above average assistant to the regional director. The railroad had been a constant thorn in our side from the very beginning, always trying to set free our sense like they're some kind of actual people. So it was time to put them down, for good, if you catch my drift. But the catch? Well, Dwight had to be the one to do it. And although it may seem like pure savagery, Dwight will do anything to maintain his role as manager and to keep his plans for world domination on schedule. So it's with a heavy heart that we... it's already over? I had this whole thing. Okay, well, with an organization that tiny, they were basically doomed from the start. With that said though, Dwight did spare just one old friend from the massacre. Now, with the railroad out of the picture, only one loose end remained: the Brotherhood of Steel. Naturally, we held another office meeting to discuss how to deal with this final threat, but this time, Dwight was in the driver's seat, baby. Hell yeah. Sure, they've got power armor and giant blimps, but the Institute, we've got numbers. And not just any numbers, synthetic numbers. Efficient, obedient, and disposable, a lot like ideal interns. And Dwight made the call to produce as many synths as we could. We're going to drown the Brotherhood in pure, unemotional manpower. But before the main events kicked off, Dwight had just one more task. Sneak on to the Brotherhood base and take out 3 generators preventing our synths from securing the area. So I popped a stealth boy and got to work. Generator 1, gone. Generator 2, toast. Generator 3, took a little bit longer to find, but by the time I blew it up, the party had already started, and Dwight doesn't show up late to parties. With the path clear, I made a beeline for the giant anti-communist robot we were about to hijack. You see, Liberty Prime was the key, and we're turning him from patriotic enforcer to Schrute company property. Now, normally a swarm of Brotherhood operatives would be overwhelming, but let me tell you, Dwight's Grandma Adams' revolver did a little more than just blow out a coworker's eardrums this time. And just like that, Liberty Prime was ours. And as the dust settled, with the Brotherhood finally wiped off the map, Dwight returned home to the Institute. But the celebration would have to wait. You see, Father was on his deathbed. I told him about our victory and the future of our world domination. And with his last breath, Father handed me the metaphorical baton, naming Dwight Schrute the official manager, CEO, and undisputed overlord of the Institute. Victory never tasted so sweet. But before Dwight did his victory lap, there was one final matter to attend to. You see, Schrutes have a very specific tradition when it comes to a death in the family, and since Father technically fit the bill, there was only one appropriate way to honor his passing.
Let your surrender.
And with that final buckshot, the nuclear family quest was complete, proving once and for all that yes, you can in fact beat Fallout 4 as Dwight Schrute. Well, that does it for today's video. As always, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And as always, remember to smile.